Happy summer.
This is so. I think that we'll start it out with this. So thanks everyone again for joining. Again, the time of day is kind of unique for these. Historically, we ran them end of day in the U.S., but we're trying to make sure that it's more inclusive, kind of to the entire global community that this represents. So we'll continue down this path of having these earlier in the day to start if you're in the U.S. and later in the day if you're in Europe. Definitely leave some feedback and thoughts if you have it. But as a whole, thanks for joining and. Yeah, we'll go from there. So just a reminder for everyone that these weekly sessions as well are a little bit more focused on giving the community and DAO members, et cetera, as a whole, an update of what's actually happening on the farm. It's definitely different from what we're doing on Tuesdays with class, where it's very Beanstalk mechanic focused. We've been leaving time for questions at the end with Publius, and thankfully they've been able to squeeze some time out of their schedules to jump in and join. Can't promise that'll be the case going forward, but as we have the ability to do it, we'll do that right now. Overall, I think just a quick synopsis and pulse of what it looks like in the community out there. Overall, I have to be honest, it's looking really great. The conversations have been really good, and I think the timing is very suiting. In the U.S., farm season starts in the summer, so to speak. So it's kind of when the kids get let out of school, go back and work on the farm, and it kind of like feels that way as we're jumping onto Discord every day and working. So it's super suiting to hear all the conversation about Beanstalk and debate about liquidity pool and kind of like we're preparing for the harvest, which normally started actually back in August. But anyway, so we'll keep the conversation as tight as we can. Bring up the different departments and areas that we're working on stuff. Have them give a brief overview, and then we'll leave some time at the end for questions. Philcor, if you don't mind giving a quick kickoff on kind of how you're tackling stuff on operations.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Happy summer. Hope everyone's doing well. So a few things I wanted to talk about today for ops stuff. So budgeting, hiring and personnel, and then some legal things. So budgeting. So we had originally planned to submit a Q3 budget to the DAO prior to the beginning of July. I think given the situation with the with the replant and the fact that there's no beans to mince, we have a budget drafted, but we're going to wait until we can actually issue a budget, which means folks here can expect to see something, but probably not for another couple weeks. But the team has been working to figure out, okay, realistically, given the state of the protocol and the fact that we're on kind of a shoestring budget, like what practically does, should we be allocating? And I think in broad strokes, want folks here to know that our top priorities are one, kind of operational efficiency. Like, obviously, there's not a lot of resources right now. So how do we do a lot with a little? And shout out to everyone who's been contributing and kind of putting hard work in. With little compensation in the moment. And also want to be clear that, like, from where we do need to spend money, or where we are allocating the limited funds we have is around security, and making sure that we launch with everything as buttoned up as we can. So takeaway on the budgeting side is we've got a good plan in place. You can expect more clarity in the weeks ahead. So the next thing I want to talk about is the team. And just to be transparent, I think one of the things that's challenging about a DAO is, how do you get amazing talent onto the project? How do you tap into kind of the excitement and skill of the community while also still maintaining some sense of like organization and keeping everyone, on point. And so part of what we're going to be, we expect to be implementing is a process or refresh process for managing contributors moving forward, because we're excited to tap into this energy and talent in this community we also recognize that in a world where, there's a lot of urgent work that needs to get done, we want to be focused and we want to have some good processes in place. So we're working on that right now as well. And again, we'll have something more concrete to share in the next couple weeks. Our big priority, obviously, is getting through replants or getting to replants. And then we'll have some more, work to share to ensure that, we're building the kind of organization that we need to be successful in the long run. And then the last piece I wanted to update everyone on is legal. Just continuing to have some kind of roadmap building conversations and doing some strategy work internally to figure out, how do we want to, or to what extent do we want to manage the risk that does come along with operating a project like Beanstalk? DeFi and DAOs are very much like a new area for legal, and so we've been talking to folks trying to figure out, okay, what does that actually mean for us? We want to be building a lasting organization here, and we want to manage risk in a smart way. So no clear direction yet, but we are trying to make sure that we're being smart about it, and we'll have more to share there once there's news to share. So that's kind of it on my end. Happy to field any questions or offer clarification if any of that didn't make sense. But that's it for me. Thanks.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Vilcor. I think on the kind of the legal side, there's a ton of really interesting pieces that we're looking at, I guess, in terms of the functional side. But for those of you who didn't join class or haven't listened yet, I really recommend jumping in and listening to this week's session. It was a really good kind of high-level overview of DAOs and governance. I feel like in general, it's something that's overlooked a lot with what's happening at Beanstalk. And Mod and Publius had a lot of really good back and forth. So definitely recommend tuning into that to get kind of the high-level theory side as well. So actually, on that note, Mod, do you want to give an update on marketing?
Sure. So when it comes to marketing, the overall messaging, right now, we're still fundraising, or we're in the barn raise, but we'll be moving that towards the replant or replanting. So as we get towards there, it's already reflected, but you'll find it reflected in most of the content, or the content that comes out that is going to be talking about Beanstalk in general, and what Beanstalk is. The barn raise will continue as is, but the focus will be on the protocol itself. Media and PR, I have a call tomorrow with the root team. So we're hoping to have some announcement there soon, and then there'll be another one when we replant. Otherwise, there's a community grant program that we're working on and hoping to have it out next month. And the intention that is to reward basically anyone from the community or otherwise who will create good content about Beanstalk, whether it's about raising awareness or educating, existing people about how Beanstalk works, or, the details of it. Otherwise, there's a blog post that will be coming out next week. We had one this week that was written by Austin. He posted it yesterday, so I'll encourage, everyone to go read it. There's a BeanPod episode that came with Pick a Finance that was out or came out this week, and then there's another one with T-Bic, who's a contributor at Beanstalk that will come out next week. And then otherwise, the thing that we will want to get back on or put more effort on is appearances or outreach in general. We did that. We did that pre-exploit, and then as soon as the exploit happened, but now with the overall thing what's happening in the market and the overall crypto market in general, it may not be. There's a lot of noise going on. But as we're getting back towards replant, it's probably something that we'll want to get back on, and especially as we go back again, go on live. Otherwise, a few other things that we have in mind to work on, which is like generalized convert, transferring deposits. These things, once the protocol is up there, we'll want to have content out there as well, educating existing users on what these things mean and how can they also make use of them. That's it from my side.
Thanks. Yeah, and on the bounty piece, actually, that'll transition. I'll give a quick update on the community side. So, on the community grants that you're talking about. Mod has definitely started leading this direction of the community grants piece, and we're going to have a chat later today, actually, about maybe pairing that with the bounties that we did in the past, or if not, worst case scenario, just sticking with the grants that we did. Those did a really good job of driving new users to the protocol and continuing to create good content that was driven, which was great. Another big piece that we actually started kicking off early April, kind of pre-exploit and everything, was a focus on education with community itself. So we all know how important that is, especially when we're looking at non-native investors and new users of Beanstalk as a whole. And so kind of full circle on the Zero to Beanstalk effort. We're starting to work on the script for the second video. The first one that you guys have all seen or that everyone has seen is on the main landing page, the Beanstalk Explained video. So we're aiming for a subsequent version of that'll walk through really high level the content of Beanstalk, and then followed by another one that'll talk really quickly about interacting with it. Obviously, with the update with Fertilizer, there's some tweaks that we're making to the script, but we're working on doing that now. And then we're also building out a script, kind of a scrollable script that we're figuring out how that might pair on the site that ties into the overall Zero to Beanstalk theme. And then there's a quiz as well that Mod and I will be working on that we're trying to have a poap tied to that will tie itself to the NFTs and the rarity of those. So actually on the note of the NFTs themselves, design's underway. We'll be dropping more leaks as we progress and anything else that we have in terms of updates on rarities and things like that. Again, the big focus, though, obviously from an engineering perspective, is not on Bean NFTs at all. Really, it's really to get the protocol up and running, and then thereafter we'll prioritize the NFTs. Hence, that we've given the timeline we have of post replant for delivering those. And the event side, we'll continue obviously having these class and the DAO updates. Any other events we'll share with you guys, and yeah, as a whole, the community. International side has started to get really interesting with the Chinese team. They've done a very good job of bringing a lot of conversation to light and working on translation. So this is kind of a call to action to anyone who may speak another language or wants to join out and help volunteer to help build out those with me. Just shoot me a DM. And in general, if there's anything else that you want to be looking at contributing to Beanstalk as well, just shoot a DM. Yeah, and that's largely it on the operations side. Austin, do you want to give an update on how it's going with copy?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, J-Dub. Cool. So from a copy front, maybe I start talking about some of the proposals that have gone out recently and upcoming. So I guess an update from last week, most folks are probably aware, but just for the sake of completion, BIP20 reached quorum, which was really exciting. And that was the migration of pre-exploit balances BIP, one of a handful of steps to get Beanstalk ready for its replant state. Also, BFP 76 voting period ended yesterday, I believe, and the DAO ended up voting for the Bean 3 curve pool. So in the meantime, there's been a handful of conversations with like Mochi and Breen, who have been helping on a lot with decisions around the parameters for that curve pool, particularly the A parameter. So I would be on the lookout for a proposal on that over the next few days, perhaps early next week. And in the meantime, I think work on the Git book at docs.bean.money has properly kicked off, and I'll be working on that with Uriel and some other folks. So pretty brief update on my end, but I think that's everything on the copy front.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Cool. So I think I don't see Mr. Manifold in the audience. So Mod, I think you gave the quick update in terms of you're going to have a conversation with them, with Root soon, and we'll hear an update from Root, what that means for Beansprout probably in the coming days, if not next week. Salo, do you want to give an update on how it's going on engineering? Maybe you and Publius can kind of tag team that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, J-Dubs. So what's going on? I think two main efforts on the front end side. So the first is we're preparing to show basically pre-exploit balances on the old websites so that they can be cross-compared to what we'll show on the new site, which is picking unripe beans. So for context, certain types of prior beans in LP need to be what we're calling picked, but basically claimed to your account after Beanstalk replants. And so we're going to show those balances on the new site, let you compare against a forked version of Ethereum on the old site. So expect to be able to access that in the coming days, hoping to launch that today, but we'll keep everybody posted. Beyond that, we're just steaming ahead on the front end. There's a lot to do. We've basically, Cool Bean and Red Beans and I have rebuilt the front end more or less from scratch over the last month or so, and we're steaming ahead pretty well. Right now, working on a mixture of the silo and pod market functionality. So some of that may be visible, but you can't interact with it ahead of replant. But in general, just trying to get all of that ready as quickly as we can. So know that it's a quick update, but happy to answer any questions as well.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and everyone in the audience, if there's anything that you do want to ask a question about, you can either raise your hand similar to class or just drop something in the town hall chat. Publius, is there anything you want to give an update on in terms of the backend and how that's progressing?
So, all is still looking good on the audit front. No major issues have come in kind of over the course of the past week, which is great. But, something very substantial could always be found in the audit last day. So it's really hard to kind of, give any sort of updated timelines kind of about when the full audit process will be finished. Kind of on the migration side, to Chad's point, kind of showing the unright balances on the UI. And, once we've had some time for people to confirm that the balances seem right, we plan to execute the migration on chain. So, just steaming along with, getting, the last little bits and pieces ready for replant, which is exciting stuff.
Okay, great. And then Publius, at the end of the audits, they do similar to in the past. They provide a full audit log that we'll have access to, correct?
Believe so. Have not received full confirmation on that, but we'll double check with both auditors and get back to the DAO on that.
Okay, great. Good. So, that's, I think, the update. If there's anything else in it, as I said, anybody wants to jump up on stage and ask a question for, drop it in the town hall chat. In the past, we ran these, they ran for about 30 minutes when we were running them, so it's kind of how they're looking right now. So unless there's some other conversation. But as you guys are, if anyone's able to drop a question, just a reminder to what kind of some things that were touched on. The new Bean podcast that came out, definitely tune into that. Rex and Dumpling talk with Larry the Cucumber at Pickle Finance about Beanstalk Farms, which is a great play on farms and food as a whole. But they talk about DeFi more seriously. Barnraise itself, I think everyone's staying pretty closely in touch with it, but it's great to see we're above 10 million, 13% raised, and I think it's like 340 wallets so far. So it's looking really good, and a lot of other content that will be coming out. And to Mod's earlier point as well, definitely let's take a look at Austin's piece that he wrote. He did a really good synopsis of talking about reflexivity and what that means to be anti-reflexive and how Beanstalk fits into that compared to systems like Terra Luna. So a lot of really good stuff that's going on, and it's not the biggest class that we've had to date. I think it's great that we're continuing to see it grow, but just as a whole, we want to continue to keep you guys apprised of everything that's happening. So be sure to continue to shoot messages and questions. I'm not seeing anyone typing. I'm seeing one person typing right now. So we'll grab that question from Jams. Maybe Publius, if you want to tackle this one. Jams asks, how does the team view generalized converting between unripe LP? I think we've all seen this, but then there's a lot of discussion about the unripe ETH LP versus some other stable LP.
So currently in the version of Beanstalk being audited, there exists two unripe tokens. There's the unripe beans and the unripe bean 3 curve LP. Now these unripe tokens are a very unique structure of token such that, it allows farmers to, basically chop these tokens into the underlying asset at, the given chop rate. So what that means is, these LP tokens are structured like a vesting token. When it comes to convert, we've implemented convert between unripe bean 3 curve and unripe beans. And there's been a lot of discussion lately about the potential of adding, an unripe bean ETH LP as well. So, that's something we can definitely consider and, allow converting between unripe beans and unripe bean ETH. But, the convert logic between unripe assets is probably one of the most complex, kind of mathematical intensive parts of the code. And, thus any sort of, re-implementing that logic or duplicating that logic with a different pool is going to be a substantial amount of work. And it will likely need to be audited before it can be released or added, which, obviously isn't ideal. But, if it's something the DAO really wants, we can discuss kind of post replant. But it is important to note that, just simply adding an unripe bean ETH LP is something that will take multiple weeks and, cost money in audits. And if, moving forward on the pace of Beanstalk's innovation is something we really want to step away from a moment to add this, additional unripe token, we can definitely, talk about that. But, it is important to note that with all these things that are in checks and balance, we have infinite things on the Beanstalk roadmap, and, to kind of step away from that for another 3 weeks after we've just stepped away from that for kind of a whole 2 months would be, not the most ideal. But it's like, if the DAO wants it, we can do it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Publius. I think the conversations are going to continue down that, and I think as the DAO continues to talk about potential ways to, what timelines look like that for that, I think it would be incredibly helpful for us to have these conversations like this in public. Silo, really quick, I think maybe you're best to answer this one. Kim Young Bean asks, "What is Tractor?"
You'll find out one of these days, Kim Young Bean.
Perfect. Cool. So it looks like I think we'll take one more question. Sync, I see you type in. So in general, again, Publius, maybe you can help address this one, but it's about public goods funds and public good funding, which I think you've been a big advocate for many months now. But he mentioned a tweet from Vitalik about, well, I'm just going to read what you wrote, Sync. Vitalik wrote a great thread on Twitter today, admonishing the predominance of status signaling among prominent players in the crypto space. Alluding to 3 ACs squandering $50 million on a yacht, taking the rest of the crypto space down with the ship, and reiterated with support for projects that direct revenue towards public goods funding. When will Beanstalk embrace public goods funding initiatives after restart? Bruce, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, there's a lot to be said for the benefit of having the protocol distribute assets to people that are adding additional value to the protocol beyond just using it per se. And on the other end, the concept of writing in those contributions into the protocol such that it happens in perpetuity means that there's effectively a tax, right? X% of all new bean mints will go towards public goods funding. That's a tax on the system. And you could make the argument that minting beans one time for development is also a tax on the system, but having it be a one-time thing that requires a DAO vote to do versus making a one-time decision and then it happening in perpetuity are fundamentally different taxes, if you will. So historically, Beanstalk Farms and Bean Sprout have benefited from these one-time mints, and I think we can all agree that Beanstalk Farms and Bean Sprout have been beneficial to the growth of Beanstalk and the speed at which Beanstalk has grown, and the beans minted for the development from Beanstalk Farms and Bean Sprout have been put to good use. But the concept is, what does it mean to do this at scale? And to some extent, if you think about the role of Beanstalk or beans as a currency, the fact that you get interest from holding the beans themselves is potentially such that people will be incentivized to use the currency and add value to it. But there's obviously a tragedy of the commons when it comes to doing work that nobody wants to do that isn't necessarily going to make money for the individual that does the work. There's definitely some budget that needs to be allocated to that. So the hope is, in the same way that if we look at how the development of the Ethereum ecosystem has been both complemented by the Ethereum Foundation as well as other capitalist actors in the ecosystem that own a significant amount of Ethereum. The hope would be that between one-time mintings and public goods fundings that people donate to in a philanthropic or a charitable manner, that will be sufficient to continue to develop or incentivize the continued development of Beanstalk as much as is necessary.
Great, thank you. Mr. Manifold, I just saw you pop in. Do you mind, we've kind of close to wrapping things up, but do you want to give a quick update on how things are going on your side with everything?
Hey guys, don't want to take too much time here, but a lot of good progress on the root end. Team is busy building the product, designing the system. We've gotten started on the outlines of the white paper, and continuing to take in, a few more checks. It seems like every week there's a couple new funds or investors that, learn about Root for the Grapevine and get interested. And it's a great way to also introduce them to Beanstalk, obviously. And so, it's fantastic exposure for the protocol. Aside from that, on the Beansprout end of things, capital conversations are still ongoing, although not as, rapid pace as, a few weeks ago. I think there's a lot of participants now, well educated and aware of the barn raise, and have either done homework on or are currently doing homework on Beanstalk. And so we're pretty optimistic on how the barn race has went so far, and what we might look like in a post restart world from a liquidity perspective. So yeah, all good things, but nothing too material to update you guys on aside from that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think any material is good material, so I appreciate you jumping up and giving the update on it. Good. Well, unless there are any other questions, like I said, we're going to try to keep these meetings pretty tight. In the future, we'll keep some space for the town hall chat, but definitely encourage everyone to continue leaving those questions, both in general and whatever active threads you're working on, or continue to bring that list for class as we have them on Tuesdays. And unless there is anything else, which it doesn't look like there is, I'll drop a couple links just about some of the content that we've talked about earlier in terms of blog posts and podcasts. And let me just check questions one more time. Actually, there is a comment from Walkabout that said we need permissions granularity between devs and the DAO in their opinion. Walkabout, if you want, you can pop up here real quick and kind of elaborate on that real quick, and then we can close out the session with that. You want to jump up? And in the meantime, really quickly, as we try to get a response from them, Mr. Manifold, do you want to, Bean just asked if Root finances investing part of the funds into the barn race?
Probably don't want to comment on Root specific strategy just yet. In fairness to the team and investors, probably, want to greenlight some of that. But, in general, I'd say, the barn race is a very interesting entry point for any individual participant into Beanstalk.
Perfect. Great. Okay. Let's keep this tight. If you have other questions, anything else to DM about, etc., as I said, just shoot messages. But thanks everyone for taking the time for the call.